I want to welcome you into and thank you so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. WelcomeHomeFP.com is the website. Find out more about Ralph and Tim, the entire practice at Welcome Home Financial Partners. Also set up a time to speak with them right there, WelcomeHomeFP.com. Also give a call, 804-635-3550. It's 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan. We are not a sports show by any means. We are going to talk a little bit about March Madness later on in the show. We'll get to that. But before we dive into anything, let me check in. Ralph and Tim, glad to be with you as always. How you doing today?
We're doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Happy after the daylight savings time day, right?
Right. It's been a bit of an adjustment for some of us, some more than others. One thing that I think you guys can both relate to, people that don't really understand daylight savings, kids and pets, they don't care. They absolutely do not care if it's an hour later, an hour before. They have their internal clock, and we can do a whole rant about daylight savings, but we won't. We'll let's talk about something that is more pressing here in the area, in the Richmond area, and that is with buyout offers. Thousands of federal employees, they're facing buyout offers and terminations from the Trump administration's DOGE initiative. The stakes are high. I mean, you could take a buyout, and that might mean a nice windfall right now, but it could jeopardize long-term benefits like pensions and health care. And those that opt not to take the buyout, that are opting to stay, they could be terminated without severance, have nothing to show for it at the end of the day, taking that gamble. How have you helped federal employees and also any employees that have been presented with a buyout, either in the public sector or the private sector, make a choice as critical as this?
Well, there's an awful lot of change going on right now, not just the federal government, but there's other companies, especially around here in Richmond, that are going through some restructuring, if you will. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that are just, the future is uncertain, right? And it always is, but now more than ever, there's so many different types of changes, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. And, we've helped a lot of people kind of put themselves at ease, right? Give them a little peace of mind and saying, hey, guess what? These are the numbers. This is what things look like. If you need to leave right now, whether it's going to be on your own accord or not your own accord, then you're going to be covered. And I think, we talk about it quite a bit is people kind of wait till one foot's out of the door, right, to start planning instead of doing it beforehand. And I think this has kind of shed that light to where, hey, we've got to make sure that we are going to be prepared because life changes. Every day is going to be different. Every hour is going to be different. You've got to make sure you're going to be able to be okay because if you're 55, 60, maybe even 65 years old, and now you're involuntarily being pushed out the door, if you will, you want to make sure that you don't have to go back to work, right? Mm-hmm. I know here in the state, our governor's opened up some other opportunities for on the state level and, and not influencing is the wrong word, but saying, hey, guess what? Even if you lose your job at the federal government, there's some opportunities here in the state. And I think that's important because if you're 45 or 50 years old, you might have to work a little bit longer. Right. But if you're 55, 60 years old and you're involuntarily pushed out the door, then you can make sure that you're going to be okay. Because most people don't want to start a different career once they hit 55 or 60 years old. Yeah. And I think, everybody has their own idea as far as retirement's going to look like. One thing you got to make sure is that you've got the finances secure. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong because they are not taking a look well before their retirement date.
And I would also say to a lot of people, life's going to throw changes at you. This is just one of those obstacles that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. And you've never had to do it before, so you don't know what are the options for you. And that's kind of where we come in. And we've seen a lot of different situations over the years and just kind of help people guide them through it. Because guess what? It's not just a financial burden on you. It's probably going to be an emotional burden mm-hmm. because all of a sudden you've got a paycheck coming in and you may have a paycheck until maybe September because it's just like an individual came in and worked for the IRS and the IT. He is being offered a buyout and he decided that might be a good time to come in and let's talk about it because we talked about his retirement for a few years just because he was so far out. But now it's really a reality that's coming due without his choosing. So now he's got to figure out what to do. And as fiduciaries, that's some of the things that we sit down and talk to people about. It's not the fairy tale ending that everybody dreams about or been told about from Disney that things always are just wonderful. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. It's just sometimes life gets in the way. We have to figure out how's the best way to get where you want to go. It's not about what your neighbors want you to do. It's not about what the government wants you to do. what do you want to do? How do you want to live the rest of your life? Do you want to live it in worry, or do you want to live it in stress-free as much as you can? Because life is stressful no matter what, because things are going to change, whether it's your job, whether it's your health, and sometimes whether or not it's your marital status. Because guess what? All these things emotionally does take effect just from a financial standpoint on sometimes marriages, sometimes not. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's a massive curveball, because there's a lot of changes that can happen with that. But, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, excuse me, let me just say it this way. The few folks that still get pensions, right, they rely on those pensions quite a bit for their retirement. And, you know, if you're trying to hit 20 years, 30 years, or a certain age to make sure that you get that full benefit that you've kind of calculated in your mind, hey, you know, my ex-employer is going to give me $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And now if you're forced out, you're probably not going to get that full benefit. So now you got to make sure that you compensate for that. And that's, once again, really important with the uncertainty. You know, that shows in the market right now. The uncertainty is real. And when people are nervous, people are scared, you'll see it in the stock market. And, you know, if you anticipated getting $4,000 a month from the federal government or whoever it may have been, and now instead you're only going to get 75% or maybe even only half of that, we've got all the money in the market, and now we're forced to retire. What does that mean for our retirement? So it could really derail you as far as what you were anticipating in retirement. You know, we've worked with quite a few folks over the last few months that are really nervous or really scared. They've called us maybe for the first time, or there's some people that we've worked with for a while now that, you know, they're kind of coming back because, like that's saying, the reality is real at this point. We know that there's going to be an end date, whether it was our date or not. So that's why you've got to make sure that you're going to be fully prepared for that scenario. And you know what? Worst case is you're fully prepared, and then you're going to continue to work.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of folks ask us, well, when should I retire? And it's like, well, you should retire. The perfect time to retire is when you're fully prepared, right? So what you'll see, and we talk about this a lot too, Chris, is, you know, with a lot of the folks that we're talking to, they can kind of prolong their career, if you will, right? So if we're 60 years old and now we know that we could retire today if we wanted to, but we still enjoy our work, we still want to continue on, you know, that could kind of prolong your career. So if you said, hey, I'm going to retire at 62, maybe I'm going to work until 65, because I know at any point in time I can walk in there and say, hey guys, I'm out, I'm done. And I think that's, you know, something that's often overlooked because people don't think that way. It's all, hey, we're striving for this. We're all driven to some level of life. And I think, you know, if you've got your mindset on of, hey, I'm going to retire at 55 or 60, but you're still enjoying your life, you're still enjoying your work-life balance, there's a lot that can come through with that. Because most people, when you continue to work, the better off things are, right? As long as you put certain things in certain areas, you want to make sure that you're still ready for that downfall.
And what I would say also, Chris, and Tim will probably verify what I'm about to say, is that nothing in life is guaranteed except, you know, death and taxes, as Franklin used to say. However, you know, if you are lucky enough and smart enough to have a plan in place, that's wonderful. But guess what? It's not set in stone. That's what I tell people when we do our roadmap process. You know, we show people what it looks like or visualize your retirement. Do you have enough money coming in to pay your bills, do the things you want to do? But it's not set in stone because things happen. This is one of the things that are throwing a big monkey wrench into the gearbox of your life, okay? You might have had a plan that, like Tim said, I'm planning on retiring at age 65 and I'm going to have $8,000 a month coming in from my pension. And now all of a sudden you get a little pink slip or say, hey, we don't need your services anymore because we want to do something else instead of having you alongside us. So it's not set in stone. You got to be prepared for change. And guess what, people? Change is difficult for 99.9% of the people. Life is always in a state of flux when you have change. You got to get prepared for it. It's not something that you can sit down and have it in stone, but you got to get ready for it, particularly if you know it's coming. If you don't prepare for it, the situation could get completely worse for you. You've got to get ready.
Yeah. And I think for change for most people, it's uncomfortable, right? So there's a lot of people that live inside their comfort zone, if you will. And hey, we've had conversations before where people are like, well, you're giving me every reason to make these changes, but I'm just kind of scared right now. It's going to take me a little while to make sure that I'm fully ready to make that change.
Sure.
Right. So I think that's where people are right now, but specifically like the federal government. I mean, and I don't know the whole inside story, right? But if you have to send 5 bullet points every week of, hey, what you're doing and what you're accomplishing, that takes a toll on people. And not to say that they feel devalued, but I think that's kind of where folks are now. And, you give us a call, we can sit down with you and say, hey, guess what? These are the things that we see. We feel like you are in a good position to where you could take that buyout, or you could take whatever they're calling it at this point in time, because you'll hear conflicting stories of this, that, and the other. But I think that's what's important right now is, there's going to be change, and there will always be change. There's not going to be, one time in history where there won't be any change, but making sure that if you are forced to, or, hey, I'm just tired of doing this, this is taking a toll on me, and I want to make sure that I am prepared and I am ready to go if I want to, because there's going to be other opportunities. If people think this is just a one and done type of thing, they can think again. I mean, there's going to be a lot of change upcoming, and we can see that specifically with, the employment status of certain people. When it comes down to the stock market, there's going to be changes. So You've got to make sure that you're going to be ready for that.
And one thing I always tell people, Tim will verify what I'm about to say, because one of the expressions that you hear around a kitchen table or a conference table, whatever, and they'll say, it is what it is, which is what I hate the most. And I always tell them, I say, yeah, but you make it what you want it to become. Mm-hmm. So, all right, life's giving you a situation that you didn't plan on. So what are you going to do about it? You got to make it better for yourself. Now you understand that you don't have that paycheck coming in. Where's it going to come from? There are so many things that you've got to consider if you're going to lose your job, because not just your paycheck. What about your health care? What about the life insurance coverage? All these different things that we sit down and talk to people about as fiduciary. It's just not about your paycheck that you're going to lose, because guess what? If you have a spouse or a child that's got health issues, what are you going to do? And you're not 65. You've got to come up with a plan. It's just not one thing. It's not about the money. It's about your life, your lifestyle, all the things that you've been preparing for retirement has now just speeded up. And all of a sudden you're 10 years out. Now, what are you going to do? That's why you need some help. Because how many times have you ever retired? And as I tell people, probably most of you just once, and you just not sure what needs to be done. That's why we're here to help you understand what you need to be done, whether you're in the federal government or whether you're in the private sector, major corporation that you're going to lose your job for downsizing. That's what we're here for.
You want to be prepared for whatever may come down the line. I'm making a note, by the way, to work the phrase "it is what it is" out of my vernacular here, because I've said it many a time. I won't do it on the show. I'll try not to. Yes, change happens constantly, and change rarely doesn't, or is rarely without some sort of financial implication for the good or the better. It's usually more expensive. I have 2 questions for you guys. But actually, before I do that, in case someone has questions of their own regarding a buyout or making sure they're okay, here's how you reach out to Welcome Home Financial Partners, to Ralph and Tim Short, 804-635-3550, or going online to the website, welcomehomefp.com. So one of the questions is probably going to be unpopular for the listeners, or it's a shift in sort of a mindset, but I'll go and ask both of them right now. One, if someone is presented with a buyout offer, if they're forced into retirement earlier, does that mean that is it still possible for them to be able to find a way to retire on their own terms, retire in a way that they want to? And then the second question, and this is the one that may ruffle some feathers, I'm aware of that. Should retirement readiness, preparing for retirement, be an age? So many people think 62, 65, whatever. Or should it be a state of mind? Should it be knowing that I've got it and that I'm ready to retire? And yeah, it may be a little longer than when I first anticipated, or it may be sooner. Is that the way that people should be framing retirement in their minds?
Well, I think it should be about the mindset, right?
Okay.
I don't think you need to chase a particular age or a particular anything other than making sure that you can retire the way that you want to. And I think, kind of going back to, if we know, hey, we're 55 years old and all these changes are happening, there's a buyout offer there, and it doesn't have to be just federal government, but as long as we know that the numbers work, right, and we've got assets in particular areas to make sure that we can live the way that we want to in retirement, that's when the perfect time is to retire. But people are often chasing not just the age, but that particular magic number, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people, hey, I want $1 million or I want $2 million. Well, that's great. That's fine and dandy. But when you get into retirement, it's all about the income. So if you've got $1 million inside your portfolio, whether you're the federal government and it's in your TSP or you're in the private sector and it's sitting over at a different company, we want to make sure that your spending habits aren't out of control, which, you know, usually the people who make the more income, they do spend a little bit more. Now, how much of that is disposable? How much of that can you kind of reel in? Because if you've got $1 million and you're spending over $10,000 a month, well, guess what? That $1 million probably ain't going to last you a whole long. So I think that's what's important, to shift the mindset of chasing the age or chasing the actual number on our accounts. And let's making sure that we can provide that guaranteed income, if you will, to make sure that you can fund your lifestyle and then do other things. So I think, you know, it's more about making sure you can retire the way that you want to, no matter what the age and stage is. And I think that's what's more important than trying to chase a particular age or a particular number.
But I think the other thing that people need to understand, it's not necessarily all about the numbers, all about the money, because if you've lost your job, maybe emotionally, you may not feel like you're worth anything anymore. You've got to get that mindset saying positive. All right, now I've got a different stage in my life. What am I going to do to make it better for me? Because it's all about what you want to do. You've got to understand, for you, what is your goal? What is your mission now in life? Because you wanted to make money for your company and you did a good job, but they decided that they didn't need you anymore. Now, what are you going to do for yourself? How are you going to make yourself feel worthy of continuing to live on like you had planned to, but it's going to be in a different avenue, a different roadmap, whatever you want to call it. But you, from an emotional standpoint, you've got to have people around you that are positive. You got to have people around you that understand what you're going through and understand, hey, it's all about what you're trying to accomplish. You've got to have a goal. You got to have a mission. If not, you're going to get into a world of doldrums, depression, whatever you want to call it. But you need to understand that's just a part of what you're going to have to live through in life, whether you lose your job or not, because some days are not as nice to live through as other days are. Would you agree with that, Chris? I know you're real young and you've never been through any of this, but
well,
in my experience,
I've actually been through a few, and this is a part where I'm going to give unintentionally a pep talk for people out there, because yes, I've been through countless rounds of layoffs. For the most part, I've remained unscathed when that happens, but I've had friends and other coworkers, obviously, who have, you know, found themselves without a job. They weren't necessarily presented with the buyout offer, but it can be demoralizing. You know, you don't feel like you know, you're valued by the company, or just it could do tolls on your self-esteem. Here's the thing: at the end of the day, you are not your job. You are, you know, what you do outside of those walls. You have to have means to accomplish that. But in a lot of those cases, for them, it ended up being a blessing in disguise. They went on to do bigger and better things, and that's the thing when it comes to, especially if you're in that retirement red zone. You know, what you were aspiring to retire to, you know, and can you now make that into a reality? If you have a plan in place, if you've run the numbers ahead of time, in the same way that, you know, when pilots are making their final approach, they're not doing it right before they touch down on the runway. They're doing it ahead of time to make sure everything is lined up. If there are things that need to be worked on, you know, they make those changes. It's the same sort of thing when it comes to employment. If you think that there may be a buyout situation down the line coming for you, it is very much a measure twice, cut once sort of situation. You want to run the numbers and see if it's going to work, it's going to align for you. And then, you know, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, they can help you with that, help you run the numbers and say, you know, you can, if you take the buyout offer, this is what it'll look like. And, you know, maybe this is what you should do ahead of time, or, you know, you're actually okay to retire ahead of time, or you may find out that there is work that needs to be done. We've said that many times. That's not necessarily an indictment on your part, and it's not necessarily the worst thing. You now know what the steps are so that you can, in fact, retire on your own terms. All it takes to get started is start developing that plan, that retirement roadmap process with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners is reaching out. Go to welcomehomefp.com, find out more about them, find out more about the retirement roadmap process. maybe attend one of the upcoming events that they've have going on. It's all listed there. Or you can give a call if you can't make those events or you just want to jump the line. You want to get in touch with them as soon as possible. It's 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. You can always find them online on the website, and that is welcomehomefp.com. I want to thank you, as always, for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Remember, control what you can control, and try to tune out all the other noise if you can. Gentlemen, appreciate the time. As always, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time as well. So we've talked a lot to the federal government employees today, but this kind of goes for everybody. I mean, change is going to happen. You just want to make sure that you're prepared for it. So we would like to extend the opportunity for you guys to give us a call. We'll bring you into the office and create this retirement roadmap, see kind of where things are, where you need to be, some other opportunities out there, things that are going well. And I think that's what's important, to make sure that whether it's on your accord or not, to make sure that you're going to be fully prepared for retirement. So give us a call today. We'd love to get you into the office. We want to thank you guys for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any resident of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.